Welcome, dear friend, to this quiet space, a gentle sanctuary for your mind. Tonight, as the world outside settles into slumber, we will begin a journey together into the deep and whispering life of the ancient forest. We will walk among giants, listen to their silent stories, and explore the profound science that weaves their existence into the fabric of our own. Our story tonight is a scientific lullaby, a tale of trees. Before we begin, I would love to know where you are listening from, what little corner of the world you are finding rest in tonight. Your presence here is a gift, so please feel welcome to share a thought in the comments below. And if these stories bring you comfort, please support our journey with a like and subscribe to the channel so that we may continue to explore these wonders together. Thank you so much. And now, let us begin. Let our story start with something you can hold in the palm of your hand, something small and unassuming and yet more full of promise than a star-filled sky. Let us begin with a single, silent seed. It rests in the darkness, a tiny vessel of suspended time, a universe in waiting. This state of profound stillness is not an absence of life, but a deep and patient slumber known as dormancy. Within the seed's core, life is held in a perfect stasis, protected by a chemical guardian, a hormone called abscisic acid, which acts like a gentle lullaby, whispering to the life within, "Not yet. Not yet. Wait for the world to be ready for you." This is a sleep that can last for days or for centuries, a testament to the enduring power of patience, a quiet confidence that the right moment will eventually come. Imagine cradling a 2,000-year-old secret, a life that has been dreaming since the time of ancient empires, waiting for nothing more than a gentle touch of water and warmth. This is the miracle held within the seed coat, a fortress wall protecting the most precious of treasures. Inside this protective layer, known as the tester, lies the entire blueprint for a forest giant. Here, we find the embryo, the nascent tree in its most delicate form, a sleeping queen in her castle, containing the first tiny leaves, the stem, and the root, all folded in upon themselves in a miracle of biological origami. And packed all around her is her royal pantry, a starchy, nutrient-rich tissue called the endosperm, a final gift from the parent tree, providing all the energy she will need for her great awakening and her first push into the world above. And so she waits, this sleeping queen in her dark, quiet kingdom, feeling the subtle shifts of the world outside her walls. She is waiting for a story to begin, a story that is told not in words, but in the language of the elements. First comes the water, the gentle messenger. It seeps through the earth, softening the hard seed coat, permeating the fortress walls, and delivering a message to the cells within that the long thirst is over. The water washes away the chemical lullaby of abscisic acid, and in its place, another hormone, gibberellin, begins to stir, sounding a gentle reveal to the sleeping embryo. Then comes the warmth, a gradual, loving heat that tells the seed the harshness of winter has passed, that the sun is returning to the world. This warmth quickens the dormant enzymes, the tiny molecular workers who have been asleep at their posts, and now they begin the crucial work of converting the stored starches of the endosperm into simple sugars, the essential fuel for the immense effort of birth. For some seeds, nestled just below the surface, a third signal is needed. The faint, filtered kiss of light, a final confirmation that the path upwards is clear of obstruction. Water, warmth, and light, the three ancient keys that unlock the sleeping universe within the seed. And when all three align in perfect harmony, the miracle of germination begins. The first act of this new life is one of trust, a blind faith in the fundamental forces of the universe. From the awakening embryo, a tiny pale root, the radical, emerges. It does not know where the earth is, not in the way we know things, but it feels a persistent, gentle pull, an invisible current flowing through all things. This is the force of gravity, and the root, in an act of profound surrender, grows towards it. This instinct, this downward seeking, is called gravitropism, a plant's innate response to the planet's gravitational heart. The root pushes down, anchoring the new being, seeking the deep, hidden reserves of water and minerals that will sustain it. At the same time, from the other end of the embryo, a delicate shoot, the plumule, begins its own journey, but in the opposite direction. It is guided by a different calling, a yearning for the sun. This upward striving, this relentless search for light, is called phototropism. The cells in the shoot are exquisitely sensitive to light, especially the blue wavelengths that signal the open sky. They will bend and curve and stretch, navigating the dark soil, always reaching for that distant promise of energy. The root reaches for the heart of the world, and the shoot reaches for the heart of a star, a perfect, silent polarity, a dance of opposing forces that is the very definition of a tree's life. The tiny seedling has no eyes, no mind, no consciousness, as we would understand it, and yet it navigates its world with an unerring wisdom, a deep, cellular knowledge of down and up, of darkness and light, of earth and sky. And so, from a state of perfect, patient stillness, a new life has stirred. It has broken the bonds of its own tiny world and has begun its slow, miraculous ascent, a fragile green whisper pushing its way through the silent, dark earth, carrying within it the ancient memory of the forest and the immense, unspoken promise of a canopy that will one day touch the clouds. That fragile green whisper, having trusted the unseen forces of gravity and light, now breaks through the surface of the soil, a tender offering to the vastness of the open air. Its first two leaves, the cotyledons, unfurl like a pair of tiny hands opening for the first time. And in this moment, the young sapling takes its very first sip of the sun. This is the beginning of the most profound and vital alchemy on our planet, a process so fundamental to our existence that its quiet, constant rhythm is the very heartbeat of the world. It is called photosynthesis, a word that simply means making things with light. Yet this simple description belies the cosmic miracle it represents. It is the art of eating starlight, of turning the intangible, fleeting energy of a distant sun, 93 million miles away, into the solid, tangible substance of life itself. At its core, it is a chemical reaction of sublime elegance, a recipe written in the language of molecules. The tree breathes in the carbon dioxide that we and all animals exhale, a molecule written as CO2. It draws water, H2O, up from the earth through its newly formed roots. Then, in the presence of sunlight, within the sacred chambers of its leaves, it performs a transformation. The equation that describes this miracle is a kind of poetry. 6CO2 plus 6H2O reacts in the presence of light to form C6H12O, 6 plus 6O2. The tree takes 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water, and with the energy of light, it forges them into one precious molecule of glucose, a simple sugar, which is the food that will build its body, its leaves, its branches, its very being. And in this act of creation, as a generous and life-altering afterthought, it releases 6 molecules of pure oxygen, the very air that fills our lungs, the breath of the world. This entire process, this quiet, constant miracle, is made possible by a single, extraordinary molecule, chlorophyll. This is the pigment that gives leaves their verdant hue, the green blood of the forest. Chlorophyll is a master of light, a discerning connoisseur of the sun's emissaries. Sunlight, which appears to our eyes as white or golden, is in fact a vibrant spectrum of colours, a rainbow of different wavelengths of energy. When this light washes over a leaf, the chlorophyll molecules within act as infinitesimal nets, perfectly shaped to capture specific kinds of light. They are particularly hungry for the energetic photons of blue and red light, absorbing them with incredible efficiency, harnessing their power to drive the chemical reactions of photosynthesis. But the green light, the colour that lies in the middle of the spectrum, is not what the chlorophyll desires. It is the wrong shape, the wrong energy. And so, the green light is not absorbed. Instead, it is turned away, reflected back from the surface of the leaf. And it is this rejected light, this gentle stream of green photons, that travels from the leaf to our eyes, painting our world in the colour of life, a constant visual reminder of the starlight that the forest has chosen not to eat. Every shade of green you see, from the pale, tender green of a new shoot to the deep, resonant emerald of a mature oak leaf, is a colour signature of this selective feast, the leftover light from an ancient and sacred banquet. If we were to journey into the world of a single leaf, shrinking down to a microscopic scale, we would find an architecture as intricate and purposeful as any cathedral ever built by human hands. The outer surface is a translucent, waxy skin called the epidermis, a protective layer that holds the leaf's precious water in and shields it from the elements. Just beneath this skin, we find the palisade mesophyll, a layer of long, elegant cells standing upright, like pillars in a grand hall, each one packed to the brim with chloroplasts, the tiny green organelles that house the chlorophyll. This is the main solar array, the grand sun-drenched chamber where the most intense work of photosynthesis takes place. Below this orderly hall lies the spongy mesophyll, a beautiful, chaotic network of irregularly shaped cells with vast air pockets between them. This airy labyrinth allows for the free movement of gases. It is here that the carbon dioxide breathed in from the atmosphere can circulate, and the newly created oxygen can gather before it is exhaled back into the world. And on the underside of the leaf, hidden from the direct sun, are thousands of tiny, microscopic mouths called stomata. Each stoma is a pore, flanked by 2 guard cells, that can open and close with exquisite precision. It is through these tiny gates that the leaf breathes, taking in carbon dioxide and releasing the gift of oxygen, a silent, rhythmic respiration that connects the inner world of the leaf to the vast ocean of air that surrounds it. And so, the light from our sun, having travelled across the vast, cold emptiness of space for over 8 minutes, finally arrives at this tiny, green cathedral. It arrives not as a continuous wave, but as a shower of discrete packets of pure energy called photons. Each photon is a messenger, carrying a precise amount of solar power. As it strikes a chlorophyll molecule within a chloroplast, its energy is not lost, but transferred, caught, and held like a breath. This captured energy excites the electrons within the chlorophyll, setting in motion a cascade of complex chemical reactions, a microscopic dance of molecules that splits water, builds sugar, and ultimately transforms the fleeting energy of a star into the enduring substance of a living tree. Every leaf, on every branch, of every tree in the forest, is performing this silent, luminous conversion, a quiet hum of creation that sustains not only the tree itself, but the entire web of life on our planet. It is the slow, gentle, and unending process of turning the sky into the earth. This silent, luminous conversion of the sky into the earth, this gentle craft of photosynthesis, requires one more essential ingredient, a constant, life-giving stream drawn from the dark, quiet soil below. For the alchemy to occur, the leaf needs a steady supply of water, and so the tree must achieve a feat of engineering that defies our everyday intuition. It must learn to make water flow uphill, not just a few inches, but 10, 50, sometimes over 300 feet into the air, from the deepest root tip to the highest, sun-drenched leaf, all without a mechanical pump, without a beating heart. It does this through a process of beautiful, passive genius, a silent, upward-flowing river, powered by the sun itself. This quiet miracle is explained by something called the cohesion-tension theory, a name that hints at the 2 profound physical forces at play, the way water molecules cling lovingly to one another, and the gentle, persistent pull created by the sky. It begins not in the roots, but in the leaves, in those tiny breathing pores, the stomata. As the leaf performs its work, it must keep these gates open to breathe in carbon dioxide, and in the warmth of the day, a fine mist of water vapour inevitably escapes into the dry air outside. This process is called transpiration, and it is, in essence, the thirsty sigh of the forest. For every molecule of water that drifts away from the leaf, another is gently pulled forward to take its place. This creates a subtle, negative pressure, a tension that stretches all the way down the tree. It is this tension, this pull from above, that is the engine for the entire system. And it can only work because water is a truly magical substance. Water molecules have a property called cohesion. They are powerfully attracted to each other, like tiny magnets with a north and a south pole. They love to hold hands. So, when one molecule is pulled upwards from the leaf, it tugs on the one behind it, which tugs on the one behind that, creating an unbroken chain, a continuous, shimmering thread of water stretching from the sky to the soil. This cohesive chain is housed within a specialized system of microscopic pipes that run the length of the tree, from the roots, through the trunk and branches, and into the veins of every leaf. This plumbing system is called the xylem, and its tubes are incredibly narrow. Here, another property of water comes into play: adhesion. Not only do water molecules cling to each other, but they also cling to the walls of the xylem tubes. This adhesive force helps to counteract the downward pull of gravity, giving the chain of water handholds on its long vertical journey, preventing the column from slipping back down. The extreme narrowness of the xylem tubes enhances this effect, a phenomenon known as capillary action, where the combination of cohesion and adhesion can lift water against gravity, just as water rises in a narrow glass straw. So, imagine this silent, invisible river. It begins as a fine mist, an exhalation from a sun-warmed leaf. This exhalation creates a pull, a tension that is transmitted down through the branch, down through the great trunk of the tree, down into the darkness of the earth. This pull draws the cohesive chain of water molecules upwards, a silent, steady ascent through the microscopic channels of the xylem. And at the very bottom of the chain, in the soil, the roots, covered in millions of delicate, thirsty root hairs, draw in more water from the earth to ensure the chain never breaks. The tree becomes a living conduit, a bridge between two worlds. It is a vast, silent fountain, drawing the lifeblood of the earth up into the sky, powered only by the warmth of the sun and the remarkable physics of water itself. There is also a secondary, much gentler force at work, a quiet nudge from below. At night, when transpiration slows to a near standstill, the roots continue to actively pump minerals from the soil into the xylem. This influx of minerals makes the water inside the root more concentrated, causing water from the soil to follow it through osmosis, a process which generates a slight positive force known as root pressure. This gentle push from below can lift the water column a few feet, and is responsible for the dewdrops you might see on the tips of leaves on a cool, still morning, a phenomenon called guttation, where the tree gently weeps, the excess water it has pushed upwards during the night. But it is the pull from the sky that does the great work, lifting thousands of gallons of water over the lifetime of a great tree. It is a system of breathtaking elegance and efficiency, a silent partnership between the biology of the tree, the chemistry of water, and the physics of the atmosphere. The tree stands in perfect equilibrium, a living fountain that connects the subterranean darkness to the luminous air, its entire being a testament to the quiet, upward-striving journey of water. This living fountain, this conduit of earth and sky, is not merely a passive vessel for water. It is an active, growing being, and with every passing day, it records the story of its own existence. As it draws sustenance from the soil and the sun, it builds itself, layer by patient layer, writing a diary in the slow, silent language of wood. To learn to read this language is to open a book whose pages span decades, centuries, and even millennia. This art of listening to the tales told by trees is a science called dendrochronology, from the Greek words dendron for tree, chronos is for time, and logos is for knowledge. It is the knowledge of time, as written by the trees themselves, and the fundamental alphabet of this language is the annual growth ring. If you were to look at the cross-section of a trunk or a branch, you would see this story written in a series of concentric circles, a beautiful, natural mandala whispering of seasons past. Each ring represents 1 year in the life of the tree, a complete cycle of seasons, from the explosive hope of one spring to the deep slumber of the next winter. Each of these yearly rings is itself composed of 2 distinct parts, telling a tale of 2 seasons. In the spring, when the days grow longer and warmer, and water is typically abundant, the tree enters a period of vigorous, optimistic growth. It rapidly produces large new cells in its xylem to transport the plentiful water. These cells have relatively thin walls, and because they are so large, This part of the ring appears lighter in color and less dense. This is the springwood, or early wood, the pale, wide band that speaks of renewal and rapid expansion. It is the tree's joyful exhalation after a long winter's sleep. But as spring gives way to the heat and often drier conditions of late summer, the tree's growth begins to slow. It becomes more conservative, more focused on strength and consolidation rather than expansion. The new xylem cells it produces are smaller and have much thicker, more rigid walls. This dense, strong wood provides structural support to the tree, and because the cells are smaller and more tightly packed, this band of growth appears much darker. This is the summer wood, or late wood. The clear, sharp line between the dark late wood of one year and the pale early wood of the next marks the period of winter dormancy, when the tree rests, and this distinct boundary is what allows us to count the years of its life so clearly. But the rings do not just tell us the age of the tree. They are a detailed and sensitive chronicle of the conditions in which it lived. The tree is a silent, faithful historian of its own environment. A wide, healthy ring tells a story of a good year, a year of gentle sunshine and abundant rain, when the tree had everything it needed to thrive. A painfully narrow ring, however, whispers of a struggle, a time of hardship. Perhaps it was a year of deep drought, when water was scarce and growth was stifled. Or perhaps a long, cold spring delayed the start of the growing season. An insect infestation that defoliated the tree, or a period of intense competition from its neighbors, could also leave its mark as a thin, constricted ring. The rings can even record sudden, dramatic events. A dark, crescent-shaped scar embedded in the wood can tell the story of a forest fire that swept through decades or even centuries ago. The tree having healed over the wound, encasing the memory of the flames forever in its body. A sudden, sustained release, where a series of narrow rings is followed by a series of much wider ones, might tell of the death of an old neighbor, a giant that fell in a storm, suddenly opening the canopy and bathing our tree in newfound sunlight, allowing it to flourish in a way it never could before. By studying these patterns, scientists can reconstruct the past with astonishing detail. Dendroclimatology uses the climate signals in tree rings to map ancient droughts, floods, and temperature changes, long before human beings were keeping records. By taking core samples from thousands of trees, both living and long dead, such as ancient logs preserved in bogs or wooden beams, from historical buildings, researchers can overlap the ring patterns, matching the unique sequences of good years and bad years, to build continuous, unbroken timelines, stretching back over 12,000 years into the past. This continuous tree ring chronology becomes a master calendar for the planet, a standard against which other dating methods can be calibrated, including the fluctuations of radioactive carbon-14 in the atmosphere. The quiet, patient record-keeping of the forest provides a key to unlocking the planet's deeper climate history. Each tree, in its slow and steady growth, becomes more than just a living organism. It becomes a silent archivist, its very body a library of time, a pillar of memory holding the faded light of forgotten summers and the chill of winters long since past. That silent archivist, whose body is a library of time, builds its chronicle from a material of breathtaking ingenuity, a substance we call wood. We live our lives surrounded by it. We build our homes with it. We warm ourselves by its fire. And yet we rarely pause to consider the silent, patient engineering that it represents. Wood is not a simple, uniform material. It is a natural composite, a microscopic architecture of fibers and glues designed to be both incredibly strong and gracefully flexible, a combination that human engineers strive to replicate but have rarely surpassed. At the heart of this strength are two primary components: cellulose and lignin. Imagine the structure of a tree as a great tower being built. The cellulose molecules are the steel cables, the rebar of this tower. They are long, fibrous chains of sugar molecules, bundled together into incredibly strong microfibrils that give wood its remarkable tensile strength, its ability to bend and resist being pulled apart. A single strand of cellulose is stronger than a strand of steel of the same size. These flexible, powerful fibers make up the primary walls of the wood cells, creating a sturdy, yet pliable skeleton. But a skeleton of cables alone cannot build a tower that reaches for the sky. This is where the second component, lignin, comes into play. If cellulose fibers are the rebar, then lignin is the high-performance concrete that surrounds them. Lignin is a complex, rigid, and sprawling polymer that fills the spaces between the cellulose fibers, binding them together and encasing them in a hard, protective matrix. It provides wood with its immense compressive strength, its ability to bear enormous weight and resist being crushed. Lignin is what makes a tree trunk stiff and unyielding, allowing it to support the tons of weight from its branches and to stand firm against the constant downward pull of gravity. It is also hydrophobic, meaning it repels water, which helps to waterproof the tree's plumbing system and protect the cellulose fibers from rot and decay. This intimate partnership between the flexible strength of cellulose and the rigid strength of lignin creates a material that is a masterpiece of natural design, able to sway in the wind like a blade of grass, yet stand for centuries like a pillar of stone. This genius of design extends from the microscopic to the magnificent, from the molecular glue of lignin to the grand, sweeping architecture of the tree itself. The way a tree branches, for instance, is not a random or chaotic affair. It is an expression of a deep mathematical and physical wisdom, a pattern known as fractal geometry. A fractal is a shape that repeats itself at different scales. Look at a great oak tree. The thick trunk divides into several large boughs. Each of those boughs divides into smaller branches, and each of those branches divides into smaller and smaller twigs, right down to the veins in a single leaf. The same essential pattern of splitting and spreading is repeated over and over, at every level of its structure. This is not merely for beauty, it is a profoundly efficient solution to a series of complex problems. This fractal branching allows the tree to maximize the surface area of its leaves, ensuring each one has the best possible chance to capture the sunlight it needs for photosynthesis, while minimizing any shadows cast upon its own lower leaves. At the same time, this structure is incredibly effective at distributing weight and stress, channeling the forces from wind and snow on the outermost twigs down through the branches, to the main trunk, and into the earth. This structure is held in a state of constant, dynamic balance, a principle that architects call tensegrity, or tensional integrity. A tree is not simply a rigid column. It is a living system of push and pull. The hard, woody core of the trunk is in a state of compression, bearing the immense weight of the tree above it. But the outer layers of living wood and bark are in a state of tension, stretched taut like the skin of a drum. This beautiful opposition of forces, the outward push and the inward pull, is what makes a tree so resilient. It allows it to bend and sway gracefully in a gale-force wind, dissipating the energy of the storm through movement rather than trying to resist it with brute, rigid force. And a tree is not a static architect. It is a responsive one, actively adjusting its own structure over time. If a tree begins to lean, perhaps on a steep hillside or due to a prevailing wind, it will begin to grow what is called reaction wood. In hardwood trees, this takes the form of tension wood on the upper side of the lean, which acts like a muscular cable, actively pulling the trunk back towards the vertical. In conifers, like pines and firs, it grows as compression wood on the lower side, acting like a buttress, pushing the trunk upwards. The tree is constantly sensing the forces acting upon it, and patiently, year by year, it reinforces its own body, a silent, living engineer perfecting its own design. This silent, living engineer, this masterpiece of natural architecture, seems to us a perfect symbol of solitary strength and independence. We speak of the mighty oak, standing alone in a field, and we see an image of self-reliance. But this perception, born from our life above the ground, misses a deeper and more profound truth. To truly understand the life of a tree, we must journey downwards, past the familiar trunk, and into the dark, secret, and teeming world beneath the forest floor. For it is here, in the silent earth, that the forest reveals itself to be not a collection of individuals, but a single, vast, and interconnected intelligence. The story of the forest is not one of solitary struggle, but of a deep and ancient community, a community bound together by a subterranean network of almost unimaginable complexity and scale. This hidden network is often called the Wood Wide Web, and it is a living internet made of fungus. For millennia, it has been known that the roots of most trees form a close partnership with certain types of soil fungi, a relationship so intimate and vital it is given a special name, mycorrhiza, from the Greek words myco for fungus and rhiza for root. This relationship is one of the most beautiful and successful examples of symbiosis in the natural world, a perfect, mutually beneficial trade between two entirely different kingdoms of life. The tree, through its miraculous ability to photosynthesize, is a master creator of sugars, a being rich in carbon and energy. The fungus, however, cannot make its own food. So, the tree sends a significant portion of its hard-won sugars, sometimes up to 30%, down through its roots and shares this energy-rich food with its fungal partner. In return, the fungus offers the tree something it could never obtain on its own. The fungal body is made of a vast network of microscopic gossamer-fine threads called mycelium. These threads are far, far smaller and more extensive than the finest tree root, able to explore minuscule pockets of soil and unlock nutrients that would otherwise be inaccessible. This mycelial network acts as a colossal extension of the tree's own root system, increasing its surface area for absorption by hundreds or even thousands of times. The fungus is a master miner, gathering crucial minerals like phosphorus and nitrogen, as well as water, and delivering them directly into the heart of the tree's roots. It is a perfect partnership. The tree provides the energy, and the fungus provides the essential building blocks for life, each being offering its unique gift to the other. But the true wonder of this network is that it does not end there. The mycelial threads of a single fungus can connect to the roots of many different trees, and a single tree can be connected to the networks of many different fungi. The result is a forest-wide web of life, a shared subterranean infrastructure that links nearly every tree in the ecosystem. And through this intricate web, the trees and their fungal partners do more than just trade resources. They communicate. This is the forest's living mind. If one tree, for instance, is attacked by a plague of insects, it can release specific chemical distress signals into the mycorrhizal network. These signals travel through the fungal threads to neighboring trees, acting as an early warning system. Receiving this message, the other trees can begin to ramp up their own chemical defenses, producing compounds in their leaves that make them less palatable to the insects, before the attack has even reached them. They share information, broadcasting warnings of danger through the silent, dark earth. And most remarkably of all, they share sustenance. At the heart of these complex networks are often the oldest and largest trees in the forest, the great elders who have stood for centuries. These are what scientists call hub trees, or more evocatively, mother trees. Because of their immense size and extensive root and fungal systems, they act as central nodes, connected to hundreds of other trees, both young and old. And they use their position to nurture the community. A tiny sapling, struggling for life in the deep shade of the forest floor, where there is not enough light for it to photosynthesize effectively, is not left to die. The mother tree, with its vast canopy bathed in sunlight, will send its excess sugars and nutrients flowing through the network, directly into the roots of the shaded seedling, keeping it alive, nourishing it through its vulnerable childhood, until it can grow tall enough to reach the light for itself. The forest is not, as was once thought, a place of ruthless competition, where every tree fights for itself. It is a place of profound cooperation, a complex society of beings that support one another, sharing resources, information, and wisdom. Below our feet, as we walk through the whispering woods, lies a hidden, sentient landscape, a collective consciousness that knits the entire forest into a single, magnificent superorganism. That hidden, sentient landscape, that collective consciousness, knitting the forest together in the dark earth, does not confine its influence to the soil. Just as it reaches deep into the planet's body, it also reaches high into the planet's atmosphere, breathing out an invisible presence that shapes the very sky above. We have all felt this presence, though we may not have known its name. Imagine walking in the woods after a long, dry spell, when the first drops of summer rain begin to fall. As they touch the parched ground, a beautiful, earthy, and deeply familiar scent rises up to greet you. This is the perfume of thirsty earth finally drinking, a scent known as petrichor. And a significant part of that beautiful aroma is a gift from the trees. Over the dry period, trees and other plants release a complex blend of aromatic oils that settle upon the soil and the rocks. When a raindrop strikes this surface, it traps tiny pockets of air. These bubbles then fizz upwards, like in a glass of champagne, and burst into the air as a fine aerosol, carrying those fragrant plant oils, along with a compound from soil bacteria called geosmin, directly to our senses. The scent of rain is the scent of the forest being released, a sigh of relief made tangible. This aromatic sigh is just one small part of a constant, silent exhalation that the forest is always engaged in. Trees are perpetually releasing a vast and complex array of chemicals into the air, an invisible river of molecules flowing up from the canopy. These are known as biogenic volatile organic compounds, or BVOCs, and they are the source of the distinct and evocative fragrances of the woods. The sharp, clean scent of a pine forest, the spicy aroma of eucalyptus, the sweet perfume of a woodland in bloom. These are all complex chemical conversations happening in the air. For a long time, these emissions were thought to be simply waste products, but we are now beginning to understand that they are a vital part of the forest's ability to influence and regulate its own world. These compounds, such as isoprenes and terpenes, help the tree to cope with stress, to heal its wounds, and to communicate with the world around it. The forest is not just breathing air, it is perfuming it, changing its very chemistry with every invisible exhalation. And here, the story ascends from the pleasant scent of the forest floor to the very creation of clouds and weather. As these volatile organic compounds rise from the canopy, they enter into a chemical dance with the atmosphere. Reacting with sunlight and ozone, they are transformed. They oxidize and begin to clump together, forming tiny, microscopic solid particles, a fine, invisible dust suspended in the air. These particles are the missing ingredient for one of nature's greatest spectacles, the formation of a cloud. The air is always filled with water vapor, but for that vapor to condense into the liquid droplets that form a cloud, it needs something to cling to, a solid surface on which to gather. These tiny particles, born from the breath of the trees, are the perfect seeds for clouds. They are known as cloud condensation nuclei. Water vapor molecules, one by one, begin to collect on the surface of these tree-borne particles, and as more and more gather, a microscopic droplet of water is formed. And when billions upon billions of these droplets gather together in the sky, a cloud is born. Without this ethereal dust from the forest, the sky would be far emptier, the world far drier. The forest does not simply wait for rain, it actively summons it, seeding the clouds with its own fragrant breath. This profound connection between the forest and the rain is the basis for a bold and beautiful idea known as the biotic pump theory. This theory proposes that forests are the great engines of weather on our planet. Through the process of transpiration, which we have already explored, a large forest releases a truly colossal amount of water vapor into the atmosphere. A single large tree can release hundreds of gallons in a single day. When this water vapor rises, it eventually cools and condenses into clouds, a process which releases a great deal of heat. But crucially, as the gaseous water vapor transforms into liquid cloud droplets, its volume drastically decreases. This change creates a zone of low atmospheric pressure directly above the forest. This low pressure acts like a giant, gentle vacuum cleaner in the sky, and nature always seeks to fill a vacuum. This powerful suction pulls in the surrounding air, and because coastal air is laden with moisture from the ocean, this process actively draws vast, wet weather systems from the sea deep into the interior of continents. The forest, through its collective breath, creates its own wind, a steady, life-giving current that carries the ocean's moisture thousands of miles inland, ensuring that the heart of the forest, and all the land around it, receives the rain it needs to survive. It is a staggering thought. The great green canopy below is not a passive recipient of the weather, but an active participant, a planetary-scale engineer that shapes the flow of wind and water and calls down the rain from a sky it has helped to create. That fragrant, sky-shaping breath, That constant exhalation of complex chemicals serves a purpose far more immediate and intimate than the creation of clouds. The very same airborne molecules that seed the rain are also the words, the sentences, and the symphonies in a silent, invisible conversation that fills the entire forest. The air in the canopy is not empty space. It is a medium for communication, a landscape of scents and signals carrying messages of warning, of invitation, of defense, and of dominion. When we breathe in the deep, calming aroma of a forest, what we are often smelling is the scent of the tree's own immune system at work. Many of the pleasant fragrances we associate with the woods come from a class of compounds called phytoncides, which literally means plant exterminators. These are volatile antimicrobial compounds that the trees release into the air around them to protect their leaves and bark from harmful insects, bacteria, and fungi. The sharp, clean scent of cedar or the invigorating aroma of pine is the smell of a tree actively defending itself, creating a protective, antiseptic aura that repels invaders. It is a form of silent, preventative medicine, and it is this same chemical shield that has been shown to have a calming, restorative effect on our own minds and bodies when we walk among them. This chemical language, however, goes far beyond passive self-defense. It is a dynamic and responsive system of communication. We saw how trees can send warning signals of insect attacks through the subterranean fungal network, but they can also broadcast these alarms through the air. A willow tree, for example, when its leaves are being chewed by caterpillars, will not suffer in silence. It immediately begins to produce and release a specific cocktail of volatile chemicals, including hormones like jasmonic acid. These molecules drift on the breeze, a fragrant and urgent message of distress. A nearby willow, even one that is not connected by the root network and is not yet under attack, has the ability to receive and interpret this message. Its leaves have receptors that can detect these airborne alarm calls. Upon receiving the signal, the healthy tree will immediately begin to alter its own chemistry, priming its defenses. It might start producing bitter-tasting tannins or other digestive inhibitors in its leaves, making them unpalatable and toxic to the caterpillars. The forest, in this way, is like a community with a shared alarm system. The first tree to be attacked cries out a chemical warning, and the entire neighborhood listens, preparing itself for the coming danger long before it arrives. The language of the air is not only for conveying warnings, it is also used for invitations, for forging alliances with other species. The beautiful, intoxicating scent of a flower is not an accident of nature. It is a carefully crafted advertisement, a chemical signature designed to attract a very specific partner. A flower that relies on bees for pollination will produce a scent that is irresistible to bees, while a night-blooming flower will release a heavy, sweet perfume that can travel for miles on the still night air to attract its nocturnal partner, the moth. The communication can be even more complex and dramatic. When a tobacco or corn plant is being eaten by a caterpillar, it doesn't just release chemicals to make its leaves taste bad. It releases a specific airborne S. O. S. A chemical cry for help. This particular perfume is undetectable to us, but it is a clarion call to a tiny insect ally, the parasitic wasp. The wasp smells the plant's distress signal, follows the scent trail to the beleaguered plant, and finds the caterpillar responsible for the damage. It then lays its eggs inside the living body of the caterpillar. The wasp larvae hatch and consume the caterpillar from the inside out, saving the plant from its predator. The tree has, in effect, called in an airstrike on its own behalf, a breathtaking example of interspecies communication and cooperation. Yet, for all this cooperation and shared defense, the chemical conversation of the forest also has a darker, more competitive side. Some trees use their chemical prowess not to communicate, but to dominate. This is a strategy known as allelopathy, which is essentially a form of chemical warfare. The black walnut tree is a famous master of this art. It produces a powerful chemical called juglone in its leaves, stems, and roots. When rain washes the juglone from the leaves onto the ground, or as it leaches from the roots into the soil, it creates a toxic zone around the tree where many other plants simply cannot grow. Common garden plants like tomatoes or apple trees will wither and die if they try to grow within the walnut's chemical shadow. In this way, the walnut tree ensures it has exclusive access to the sunlight, water, and nutrients in its immediate vicinity. A silent, effective, and ruthless strategy for eliminating the competition. And so, the air of the forest, which seems so clear and quiet to us, is in fact a constant, swirling symphony of invisible messages. It is a rich and complex language of molecules, carrying whispers of danger, promises of reward, calls for help, and declarations of war. A silent conversation that has been unfolding, day and night, for millions of years. As the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in fading shades of amber and rose, a profound transformation begins to sweep through the forest. The vibrant, sun-driven engine of photosynthesis slows to a halt, and the cacophony of airborne chemical conversations begins to quieten. The world of the day, with its hum of activity and its upward striving for light, gives way to the deep, resonant stillness of the night. But this stillness is not an absence of life. It is a shift to a different kind of existence, a different rhythm. The forest does not sleep in the way that we do. Instead, it begins to exhale. All through the sunlit hours, the tree has been breathing in carbon dioxide and storing the sun's energy in the sweet, simple bonds of glucose molecules. Now, in the darkness, it begins the vital work of using that stored energy. This process is called cellular respiration, and it is the necessary and beautiful counterpart to photosynthesis. It is the slow, controlled, and life-sustaining fire that burns within every living cell of the tree, from the highest leaf to the deepest root tip. The chemical equation for respiration is, in a beautiful stroke of natural symmetry, the mirror image of the one for photosynthesis. The tree takes one molecule of the sugar it has made, C6H12O6, and combines it with 6 molecules of the oxygen that fills the air, 6O2. In a slow and gentle release of energy, this reaction produces 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6CO2, and 6 molecules of water, 6H2O, along with the energy that the tree needs to fuel its growth, to repair its tissues, and to sustain its life through the long, dark hours. Where photosynthesis is an act of building, respiration is an act of using. Where photosynthesis is the forest's great in-breath, respiration is its long, slow out-breath. And for a brief moment at dusk, and again at dawn, there is a magical point of equilibrium, known as the light compensation point, where the rate of photosynthesis exactly matches the rate of respiration. For this fleeting moment, the tree is in perfect balance, neither taking in nor giving out gas to the atmosphere, a moment of perfect, quiet poise between its two worlds of day and night. While most plants follow this familiar rhythm of making food by day and burning it by night, some have evolved a remarkable alternative, a clever strategy to thrive in the harshest of environments. In dry, arid climates where opening your leaf pores during the heat of the day would lead to catastrophic water loss, certain plants have learned to separate their breathing from their eating. In time, this wonderful adaptation is called crassulacean acid metabolism, or CAM photosynthesis. These plants, like the cacti of the desert, or the orchids and bromeliads that cling to the branches of trees in the rainforest canopy, keep their stomata hermetically sealed throughout the blistering heat of the day. Then, in the cool, humid air of the night, they finally open these tiny pores and breathe in the carbon dioxide they need. But since there is no sunlight to power photosynthesis, they cannot use it right away. Instead, they convert the carbon dioxide into an organic acid, primarily malic acid, and store it in their cells' vacuoles until the morning. When the sun finally rises, the plant closes its stomata once more, now safe from dehydration, and spends the day using the sun's energy to convert the stored acid back into carbon dioxide, completing the process of photosynthesis entirely within its own sealed leaves. It is a life lived out of sync with the rest of the world, a testament to the endless creativity of nature in the face of adversity. The coming of darkness is also an invitation for a different cast of characters to take the stage. While the daytime world belongs to the bees and the butterflies, the night belongs to the moths and the bats. And so, Many trees have evolved to bloom only after sunset. As darkness falls, their flowers begin to unfurl, often appearing in pale shades of white, cream, or ghostly green, colors that will stand out in the faint, silvery light of the moon. And while they may lack the vibrant colors of their daytime cousins, they make up for it with their perfume, releasing powerful, sweet, and often heavy scents that can travel for great distances on the still night air, an irresistible beacon for their nocturnal partners. And as these creatures move from flower to flower, sipping nectar under the stars, they continue the vital work of pollination, ensuring that the forest cycle of life continues, even in the deepest dark. The forest itself seems to physically settle as night arrives. The leaves of many plants exhibit a phenomenon known as nyctinisty, or sleeping movements. The delicate leaflets of an acacia tree fold inwards, and the leaves of a clover droop downwards, as if the whole plant is gently bowing its head for the night. This quiet, rhythmic movement, governed by the tree's internal clock, is a visible sign of the great shift that has taken place, the forest closing in on itself, its life turning inwards, preparing for the quiet, secret, and deeply mysterious work of the night. That gentle, rhythmic bowing of the leaves at twilight, this nightly settling governed by the cycles of the sun and moon, is an expression of a deeper, more fundamental order. For the life of a tree is not just a story of cycles in time, but also of profound and beautiful patterns in space. The seemingly wild and untamed forms of the forest are, in fact, underwritten by a hidden and elegant geometry, a silent mathematical dance that allows each tree to grow in the most efficient and harmonious way possible. If you have ever looked closely at a plant, you may have noticed that its leaves, petals, or branches are not arranged randomly. There is a breathtaking precision to their placement, a field of study known as phyllotaxis, which simply means leaf arrangement. This is not an arrangement for the sake of beauty alone. It is a perfect solution to one of the most critical challenges a plant faces: how to arrange its leaves so that each one gets the maximum possible sunlight, without casting a shadow on the one below it. The solution that nature has arrived at over millions of years of evolution is a testament to the power of a single, very special number. As a plant grows, it produces new leaves from a central point at the tip of its stem, a place called the apical meristem. Each new leaf emerges at a specific angle relative to the previous one, and in a vast number of plants, that angle is astonishingly consistent. It is very, very close to 137.5 degrees. This is no ordinary angle. It is known as the golden angle, and it is derived from one of mathematics' most famous and mysterious numbers, the golden ratio. The magic of this particular angle is its profound irrationality. Because of its unique mathematical properties, a rotation by 137.5 degrees will never perfectly align with a previous rotation, no matter how many times you repeat it. For a growing plant, this is a brilliant strategy. By separating each new leaf by the golden angle, the plant ensures that no new leaf ever grows directly on top of an old one. Instead, it creates a perfect, non-repeating spiral, a pattern that optimizes the spacing of the leaves in every direction. As you look down the stem, this spiral arrangement ensures that the gaps between the older leaves are always filled by the newer ones, creating a beautiful, intricate architecture of foliage that is a masterpiece of light harvesting efficiency. This underlying mathematical principle gives rise to other famous patterns that we see all around us in the natural world. The golden angle is intrinsically linked to the Fibonacci sequence, that simple, additive progression of numbers, where each number is the sum of the two that came before it. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, and so on into infinity. If you look at the head of a sunflower, the scales of a pine cone, or the bumps on a pineapple, you will find a stunning manifestation of this sequence. The seeds of the sunflower are not arranged in simple circles. They are organized into two sets of intersecting spirals, one curving to the left and one to the right. And if you were to count the number of spirals in each direction, you would almost invariably find a pair of adjacent Fibonacci numbers, perhaps 34 in one direction and 55 in the other. This is not a coincidence. It is the natural, emergent result of a system growing from a central point, with each new element appearing at the golden angle from the last. It is the most efficient way to pack the maximum number of seeds into the smallest possible space. This geometric wisdom extends beyond the arrangement of leaves and seeds, and into the very plumbing of the tree, the network of branches and veins that transport life-giving water. This network follows a principle known as Murray's Law, which describes the most efficient way for a fluid to travel through a branching system. The law essentially dictates how the branches should taper, ensuring that the tree uses the absolute minimum amount of energy to transport sap from the thick trunk to the tiniest twigs. It is a perfect balance between the energy cost of moving the fluid and the biological cost of building and maintaining the network of pipes. From the way a trunk splits into mighty boughs, to the way the central vein of a leaf branches into a delicate, fractal web, this principle of perfect efficiency is at work. It is a silent, mathematical hum beneath the surface of all that green and growing life, a set of simple rules that gives rise to the endless and beautiful complexity of the forest. The tree, it turns out, is not just a master biologist and a patient chemist. It is also a silent, intuitive geometer, its entire being a beautiful, living solution to an intricate mathematical problem. That silent, mathematical order, that elegant geometry of growth that underpins the life of the forest, can seem at times to be a fragile and delicate thing. And there are forces in the world that seem to represent its perfect antithesis. Forces of chaos, of consumption, of apparent destruction. None is more powerful or more primal than fire. Our human relationship with fire is a deep and ancient one, but our instinct when we see a forest ablaze is one of fear and sorrow. We see a tragedy, an ending, the violent destruction of a beautiful and complex world. And while fire can indeed be devastating, especially when it burns outside of its natural cycles, in many of the world's great forests, it is not an enemy. It is not an end. It is a vital and necessary agent of change, a great and powerful recycler, a sculptor of landscapes, and the bringer of a fierce and beautiful rebirth. For many ancient forests, fire is not the end of the story. It is simply a turn of the page. To understand this, we must look to the trees that have learned not just to tolerate fire, but to embrace it, to use its destructive power for their own creative purposes. High in the Rocky Mountains grows the lodgepole pine, a tree whose very existence is a testament to this partnership. Its cones are not like those of other pines, which open gently in the warmth of the sun to release their seeds. The cones of the lodgepole pine are serotinous, meaning they are sealed shut by a thick, tough resin that acts like a powerful glue. They can remain on the tree, closed and sealed, for decades, holding their precious cargo of seeds in a state of perfect preservation, waiting. They are waiting for a very specific signal, a key that can unlock them. That key is the intense, searing heat of a forest fire, a temperature of at least 113 degrees Fahrenheit, or 45 degrees Celsius. This remarkable adaptation is called pyrrhuscence. When a great fire sweeps through the forest, clearing the canopy and consuming the parent generation of trees, the heat melts the resin on these sealed cones. In the aftermath of the blaze, as the smoke clears and the ground cools, they pop open, releasing a shower of fresh seeds onto a forest floor that has been perfectly prepared for them. The fire has cleared away all the competing shrubs and undergrowth, and the ash has created a rich, fertile, and mineral-laden seedbed. The fire that signaled the death of the old forest is the very same force that signals the birth of the new. Other trees have evolved not to harness the fire, but to withstand it, to endure its passage like a mountain enduring a storm. The giant sequoias of California are perhaps the greatest masters of this art. They can grow to be over 3,000 years old, and in that time they will witness many, many fires. Their survival is due in large part to their extraordinary bark. It is a true suit of armor, growing up to 2 feet thick in a mature tree. This bark is fibrous, spongy, and remarkably low in the flammable resins and pitches that make other conifers burn so readily. It is, in effect, a giant, fire-retardant thermal blanket. When a ground fire sweeps through the grove, its intense heat is dissipated by this thick, insulating layer, protecting the vital, living cambium just beneath the surface, the delicate tissue that allows the tree to continue growing. The fire may leave great, black scars on the trunk, but the heart of the tree remains untouched, a silent, stoic survivor that has learned to wear its fiery history as a badge of honor. Elsewhere, in the sun-scorched landscapes of Australia, the eucalyptus trees have perfected a different strategy. Not resistance, but resurrection. The intensity of an Australian bushfire can be so great that it consumes the entire canopy, leaving behind a seemingly lifeless forest of blackened, skeletal trunks. But this apparent death is an illusion. Hidden deep beneath the bark, all along the trunk and the main branches, lie thousands of dormant epicormic buds, tiny clusters of sleeping life. In a healthy tree, hormones produced by the leaves in the canopy keep these buds suppressed. But when the fire destroys the leaves, that hormonal signal vanishes. Awakened by this change, and by the sudden influx of sunlight onto the blackened trunk, these buds burst forth in a miraculous flush of new, green growth. The tree, which appeared to be dead, clothes itself in a new cloak of leaves, effectively rising from its own ashes, a symbol of impossible resilience. And so the fire, which appears to us as an agent of pure destruction, is revealed to be a fundamental and creative force. It is the great recycler, unlocking the nutrients tied up in dead wood and leaf litter. It is the great gatekeeper, triggering the release of new life. It is the great sculptor, clearing space for the young and the strong, ensuring the long-term health and vitality of the forest in a timeless, powerful, and cyclical dance of life, death, and renewal. That timeless, cyclical dance of renewal, measured in the wake of fires and the slow regeneration of the forest, hints at a timescale far grander than our own. We have walked among the patient engineers and the silent archivists, but there are some trees that have so mastered the art of survival that they have transcended the seasons and the centuries altogether. They have become witnesses to deep time. To stand in the presence of one of these ancient beings is to feel a profound shift in your own sense of existence, to feel the frantic pace of our human lives slow to the calm, deep, and steady pulse of planetary time. To find the oldest of them, we must travel high into the White Mountains of California, to a harsh, wind-swept, and seemingly desolate landscape where little else can survive. Here, clinging to the rocky slopes, live the great basin bristlecone pines. They are not the tallest or the grandest of trees. They are gnarled, twisted, and weather-beaten, sculpted by millennia of wind and ice into forms of breathtaking and primal beauty. And they are the oldest known non-clonal living organisms on our planet. The oldest among them, a tree named Methuselah, has lived for more than 4,850 years. It was a young sapling when the Great Pyramids of Giza were being built. It was already ancient when the Roman Empire rose and fell. Its incredible longevity is a story of profound adaptation to hardship. In this cold, dry, high-altitude environment, the growing season is short, and so the bristlecone pine grows with an almost unimaginable slowness. In a century, its trunk may thicken by less than an inch. This slow growth creates wood that is incredibly dense, hard, and saturated with resin, making it almost impervious to insects, fungi, and rot. But perhaps its greatest secret to a long life is its ability to endure injury, to embrace imperfection. When a tree is wounded, whether by lightning, rockfall, or disease, it does not heal in the way an animal does. Instead, it engages in a process called compartmentalization. It builds a wall around the wound, a strong barrier of specialized cells that seals off the damaged or infected area from the healthy tissue. The tree does not replace the damaged wood. It isolates it, growing a new path for its life around the injury. This is why ancient bristlecones often look like they are mostly dead wood, with just a single, narrow strip of living bark and tissue connecting the roots to a small cluster of green needles. They have learned to retreat, to let parts of themselves go in order to preserve the whole, a powerful lesson in resilience and graceful surrender. This concept of ancient life expands even further when we consider not just a single organism, but a collective one. In the state of Utah, there is a forest of quaking aspen trees that covers over 100 acres. It is called Pando, which is Latin for "I spread." At first glance, it appears to be a grove of around 47,000 individual trees, their leaves trembling in the wind. But genetic testing has revealed a staggering truth. The entire forest is a single organism. Every one of those 47,000 trunks is a genetically identical stem, a clone that has sprouted from a single, vast, and interconnected underground root system. While the individual stems, you can see above ground, may only live for 100 years or so before dying and being replaced by new shoots, the root system that connects them all is of an almost unbelievable antiquity. It is estimated to be at least 80,000 years old, and could be much, much older. This single living being, this quiet, quaking giant, was already ancient when our human ancestors first walked out of Africa. It has survived ice ages, dramatic shifts in climate, and the coming and going of countless generations of all other life around it. Pando is a silent witness to a truly deep geological time. The incredible longevity of beings like the bristlecone pine and Pando has led scientists to a remarkable conclusion. Trees may not experience aging or senescence in the same way that we do. In animals, our cells have a built-in limit to how many times they can divide, a planned obsolescence that leads to the gradual decline of old age. But the growing tips of a tree, the meristems in its roots and shoots, seem to be perpetually embryonic, capable of producing new, young cells indefinitely. This suggests that a tree has the potential for biological immortality. They do not die because they have grown old. They die because something happens to them. They are felled by a catastrophic storm, consumed by a fire too intense to withstand, overcome by a novel disease, or cut down by human hands. But if left in peace, in a stable world, their lifespan has no pre-programmed end. To stand before one of these ancient ones, to place your hand on the bark of a being that has felt the sun of 5,000 summers, is to connect with something far beyond our own fleeting experience. It is to feel the quiet, patient, and enduring heartbeat of the earth itself, and to be humbled by the profound, silent wisdom of a life that has learned to measure its existence in millennia. To stand in the presence of a life that measures its existence in millennia is to be humbled, to feel our own brief and hurried passage through time. And yet, within that vast and ancient life, there are moments of exquisite and fleeting beauty, events that last only a few seconds, but which contain a wisdom as profound as the oldest tree. As the great, slow cycle of the seasons turns once more towards winter, the forest prepares for a time of rest, of withdrawal, of letting go. And this grand, collective surrender is enacted in a billion small and perfect gestures. The slow, graceful, and silent fall of a single autumn leaf. This final journey is not an accident, not a failure of strength, but a deliberate and beautifully orchestrated retreat, a gentle and necessary farewell that begins deep within the chemistry of the tree itself. As the days grow shorter and the nights cooler, a hormonal signal shifts within the leaf. The production of auxin, a growth-promoting hormone that maintains the leaf's strong connection to the stem, begins to decline. This fading signal is the cue for the tree to begin preparing for the separation. At the very base of the leaf's stem, where it joins the twig, a special layer of cells begins to form. This is the abscission layer, and it is the tree's pre-planned line of departure. It is made of two parts: a layer of weak, thin-walled cells that are designed to break apart easily, and a protective layer of corky cells on the twig side that will form a waterproof scar, sealing the wound after the leaf has gone, protecting the tree from disease and dehydration through the winter. As auxin levels fall, the tree begins to produce other hormones, like ethylene gas and abscisic acid, which travel to the abscission layer and signal the cells to begin their final task: to digest the very walls that hold them together, to gently dissolve the connection that has held the leaf to the tree through all the sunny months of summer. It is a slow, methodical, and entirely peaceful process. But before the final separation, the tree performs one last act of profound efficiency. The leaf, after a whole season of photosynthesis, is a rich repository of valuable nutrients and complex molecules. To simply discard it would be an incredible waste. So the tree begins a process of careful dismantling and reabsorption. The most valuable of these molecules is chlorophyll, the green pigment that is so essential for capturing light. The tree breaks down the complex chlorophyll molecules and draws the precious nitrogen and magnesium atoms back into the permanent wood of the twigs and branches, to be stored and used for the first flush of new growth the following spring. And as this dominant green pigment is pulled away, other colours that have been present in the leaf all along are finally revealed. The brilliant yellows and oranges of an autumn forest come from carotenoid pigments, the same molecules that give carrots and corn their colour. They have been there all summer, helping to harvest light and protecting the leaf from sun damage. But their colours were simply masked by the overwhelming amount of green chlorophyll. In some trees, like maples, as the sugars get trapped in the leaf by the forming abscission layer, they react with the bright sunlight of crisp autumn days to produce entirely new pigments called anthocyanins, which create the spectacular, fiery reds and purples. The stunning beauty of an autumn forest is the beauty of this great, slow withdrawal. A final, colourful sigh before the letting go. And then, when the nutrients have been saved, when the walls of the abscission layer have weakened to a fragile thread, all it takes is a gentle breeze, or the weight of a single raindrop, and the leaf is finally set free. Its connection is severed, and its final journey to the forest floor begins. This fall is not a straight, plummeting drop. It is a slow, chaotic, and beautiful dance with the air. The leaf's broad surface and irregular shape create significant air resistance, or drag, which slows its descent. As it tumbles, the complex interplay between gravity and the currents of air creates a motion called autorotation, a gentle, fluttering, spinning flight. This final, graceful ballet not only slows its fall, but allows the leaf to drift, to travel, to land, perhaps many feet away from the trunk of its parent tree. It is one last, small act of dispersal, and when it finally comes to rest upon the ground, its journey is not over. It joins a thick, soft carpet of its brethren, and begins its final transformation, slowly broken down by fungi and bacteria. Its remaining nutrients return to the dark, rich soil, where they will be drawn up once more by the roots of the very tree that bore it. The fall of a single leaf is not a death. It is a return, a gift, a perfect and graceful closing of a circle. That soft, rustling sound of a million falling leaves settling upon the forest floor is just one note in a vast and complex symphony, a rich and layered soundscape that is as much a part of the forest as the trees themselves. To truly listen to the forest is to open our senses, not just to the sounds that are obvious, but to the silence that surrounds them, and to the unheard music that lies just beyond the range of our human perception. The forest, by its very nature, is a unique acoustic environment. If you stand in an open field, sound travels freely, bouncing off the hard ground. But in a forest, the world is soft. The dense collection of tree trunks acts as a diffuser, scattering sound waves in all directions. The canopy of soft leaves and the porous, spongy floor of soil and fallen leaves act as a powerful sound absorber. Together, these effects create a space that is naturally hushed, a place where sharp noises are dampened and a deep, resonant quiet often prevails. This is why a forest can feel so peaceful, so reverent. Its very physical structure is an invitation to stillness and to quiet contemplation. Into this quiet space, the voices of the forest's inhabitants emerge, and they do so with a remarkable sense of order. This is not the chaotic wall of sound you might imagine, but a carefully structured, multi-layered orchestra. The scientific idea that describes this is called the acoustic niche hypothesis. It suggests that over millions of years of evolution, different species have learned to partition the available soundscape, each claiming its own unique sonic territory to ensure its voice can be heard. This partitioning can happen in time. Some birds sing most actively at dawn, others in the mid-morning, while the frogs and the crickets wait for the chorus of the dusk and the night. It also happens in frequency. Imagine the forest soundscape as a musical staff. The low, booming call of a ground-dwelling bird might occupy the bass notes. The rich, melodic song of a warbler in the mid-canopy might fill the mid-range. And the high-pitched, ethereal chirps of insects in the treetops would be the high notes. Each species carves out its own frequency band, its own channel of communication, minimizing interference and creating a beautifully organized, harmonious whole. But some of the most dramatic sounds of the forest are happening in registers that we are completely deaf to. Let us journey back, for a moment, to the inside of the tree, to the xylem, that silent, upward-flowing river of water. We know that this water is pulled upwards under incredible tension, like a rope being stretched. During a time of severe drought, this tension can become too much for the cohesive chain of water molecules to bear. The water column can suddenly snap, and in that instant, a microscopic air bubble, an embolism, is formed in the xylem tube. This tiny event, known as cavitation, releases a burst of energy, creating a sharp pop sound. This sound is far, far too high for our ears to perceive. It occurs in the ultrasonic range, a frequency more familiar to bats and dolphins. But with sensitive acoustic sensors, scientists can listen to this hidden soundscape. In a time of drought, a tree can be producing hundreds of these tiny pops every minute. What sounds to us like a silent, suffering tree is, in the ultrasonic realm, a plant screaming for a drink, a desperate, high-frequency cry of thirst. At the other extreme end of the spectrum, far below the range of our hearing, the forest is producing a deep, planetary hum. As strong winds flow over the vast, textured surface of a forest canopy, which can stretch for hundreds or thousands of square miles, they generate powerful low-frequency sound waves, a phenomenon known as infrasound. These are sounds with a pitch so low, a wavelength so long, that we do not hear them so much as feel them, if we perceive them at all. These deep, resonant vibrations can travel for enormous distances, unimpeded by hills or mountains. While we are deaf to this deep breath of the landscape, it is possible that some animals are not. Elephants are known to communicate over long distances using infrasound, and it is theorized that migratory birds or other large animals may be able to sense the unique infrasonic signature of a mountain range or a vast forest, using this unheard music as a navigational aid, a deep, resonant landmark in a world of silent sound. And so, the forest is never truly quiet. It is always alive with a symphony that stretches from the ultrasonic cries of a single thirsty cell to the deep, infrasonic hum of an entire continent breathing. That vast and complex symphony, stretching from the ultrasonic to the deep, unheard infrasonic, is the voice of a living planet. And as night deepens, and the canopy above becomes a filigree of black lace against the velvet dark, the forest invites us to contemplate an even grander connection. It asks us to look up, through the spaces between the leaves, past our own atmosphere, and out into the silent, glittering expanse of the cosmos. For the tree is not just a being of the earth. Its story is written in the language of the stars. The most profound connection of all is the one that lies in the very substance of the tree itself. Every atom that makes up the cellulose in its wood, the chlorophyll in its leaves, the sugar in its sap, apart from the very simplest, was born in the heart of a star that lived and died long before our sun even existed. In the beginning, the universe was made of almost nothing but hydrogen and helium, the lightest and simplest of all the elements. The heavier elements that are essential for life as we know it. The carbon that forms the backbone of all organic matter, the oxygen we breathe, the nitrogen in our DNA did not yet exist. They were created in the only places in the universe hot enough and dense enough to forge them, the cores of massive stars. Through a process called stellar nucleosynthesis, these giant stars spent millions of years fusing lighter elements into heavier ones. In their fiery hearts, they turned hydrogen into helium, then helium into carbon, carbon into oxygen, and so on, building up the periodic table, element by precious element. When these great stars reached the end of their lives, they exploded in the most spectacular events in the cosmos. Supernovae. In these titanic explosions, they scattered the newly forged, life-giving elements across the vastness of interstellar space. These enriched clouds of gas and dust then cooled and condensed to form new stars and new planets, including our own solar system. And so, the carbon atom that a tree pulls from the air to build its body was once, billions of years ago, inside the heart of a colossal, long-dead star. The tree is, in the most literal and beautiful sense, built from stardust, and its life is powered by a star as well, our very own sun. We have spoken of photosynthesis as a kind of alchemy, but let us now see it for the cosmic energy transfer that it is. The light that warms your face, the light that is caught by a leaf, is the product of nuclear fusion, happening 93 million miles away. In the sun's core, under unimaginable pressure and at a temperature of 27 million degrees Fahrenheit, hydrogen atoms are being fused together to create helium. This process converts a tiny amount of mass into a colossal amount of energy, which radiates out in all directions as light and heat. This light travels across the cold, empty void of space for 8.5 minutes, a journey of pure energy, until it finally reaches the earth and strikes the surface of a leaf. The tree is a living solar battery, capturing the energy of a nearby star and using it to weave the air and water into the substance of life. Every process within the tree, from the ascent of water to its silent chemical conversations, is ultimately powered by this distant, celestial engine. The tree's entire existence is tuned to the rhythms of its place in the cosmos. Its internal clock, its circadian rhythm that tells it when to open its leaves to the sun and when to rest in the dark, is not an arbitrary invention. It is a deep, cellular resonance with the majestic and reliable mechanics of our solar system. The tree's life is a dance, perfectly choreographed to the steady, 24-hour rotation of the Earth on its axis, the beautiful and predictable cycle of day and night. And on a planetary scale, the cumulative effect of this starlit dance has been nothing short of world-changing. Over the past 3 billion years, the collective work of countless trillions of photosynthetic organisms, from the earliest cyanobacteria to the great forests of today, has completely transformed our planet's atmosphere. They took a world shrouded in carbon dioxide and methane, and slowly, patiently, filled it with the gift of free oxygen. This oxygen created the ozone layer, a protective shield in the upper atmosphere that filters out the sun's most harmful ultraviolet radiation, allowing complex life to finally emerge from the oceans and colonize the land. The forest, powered by starlight, did not just adapt to the world, it helped to build the world we know, making the sky blue, the air breathable, and our own existence possible. The tree is a living bridge, connecting the dark, silent earth beneath our feet to the vast, silent cosmos above our heads, a constant, quiet reminder that the stardust from which we are all made can, with a little water and light, awaken and grow. As we draw our gaze back from that vast, star-dusted canopy, back from the cosmic scale of deep time and stellar fire, we can bring our awareness closer, turning it gently inwards. The story of the tree is not only a story of the outer world, of physics and chemistry and biology. It is also, in a deep and profound way, a story about our own inner world, about the quiet workings of the human mind and heart. For just as we are connected to the forest by the oxygen we breathe and the stardust in our atoms, we are also connected by a subtle, powerful, and deeply restorative psychological bond. If you have ever felt a sense of peace, of calm, of coming home as you step under the shade of the trees, you have felt this connection. And this feeling is not just a flight of fancy, it is a deep and ancient echo in our own biology. This idea is beautifully captured in a concept known as the biophilia hypothesis, put forward by the great biologist Edward O. Wilson. It suggests that we humans have an innate, genetically encoded tendency to seek connections with nature and other forms of life. It is, in essence, a love of the living world that is woven into the very fabric of our being. For 99% of human history, we lived not in cities of concrete and steel, but in intimate, daily contact with the natural world. A thriving green landscape was not just a pleasant view, it was a sign of life itself. It meant the presence of water, of food, of shelter, of medicine. Our minds evolved in this world, and so we developed a deep, instinctual affinity for the signs of a healthy ecosystem. The biophilia hypothesis proposes that this ancient connection has not left us. It remains a deep need within our psyche, and when we immerse ourselves in a natural environment like a forest, we are satisfying that ancient need. We are, in a sense, coming home to the environment that shaped us, and our minds respond with a profound sense of peace and rightness. This feeling of restoration can also be understood through a more cognitive lens, through what is known as attention restoration theory. Our modern, urban lives make constant demands on what psychologists call our directed attention. This is the kind of focus we need to drive in traffic, to answer emails, to navigate a crowded street. It requires effort, and it is easily fatigued, leading to feelings of stress and mental exhaustion. The stimuli of the city are often harsh and demanding. Loud sirens, flashing advertisements, sudden movements. They command our attention. A forest, however, offers a very different kind of experience. It is filled with what are called soft fascinations. The gentle, repetitive rustle of leaves in the wind, the slow, meandering path of an ant on the forest floor, the intricate patterns of light and shadow filtering through the canopy. These things effortlessly hold our attention without demanding it. We can rest our awareness upon them without strain. This allows our capacity for directed attention, which has been so depleted by the demands of our daily lives, to rest, to recover, and to be restored. The Japanese have long understood this healing power, and they have a practice for it called Shinrin-yoku, which translates as forest bathing. It is not about hiking or exercise. It is simply the act of being in the forest, of absorbing the atmosphere through all of our senses. And modern science has begun to verify the remarkable physiological benefits of this simple practice. Studies have shown that spending time in a forest can lead to a measurable decrease in the levels of the stress hormone cortisol. It can lower both heart rate and blood pressure. And remarkably, it can lead to a significant boost in the functioning of our immune system, specifically increasing the number and activity of a type of white blood cell called natural killer cells, which are vital for fighting off infections and tumors. And one of the primary reasons for this immune boost appears to be the very air we are breathing. The phytoncides, those antimicrobial compounds that the trees release to protect themselves, are inhaled by us as we walk, and our bodies respond to this gentle, aromatic medicine. We are literally breathing in the forest's own immunity, and all of this is reinforced by the very geometry of the woods. The fractal patterns of the branching trees and the unfurling ferns are intrinsically pleasing to our brains. Our visual system can process these repeating, self-similar patterns with incredible ease, inducing a state of calm, relaxed, wakeful alertness. The peace we feel among the trees is a deep truth, a gentle reminder that the forest is not just a place we go to visit, it is a part of who we are, a welcoming sanctuary that has the power to heal and restore our weary minds. The forest that welcomes and restores our weary minds does more than simply provide a space for healing. It offers us a pattern, a structure, a way of seeing and understanding the world. The form of the tree, in its elegant and logical growth, has become so deeply embedded in our consciousness that we use it as a fundamental tool for thought. It is the silent, shaping metaphor that helps us make sense of our own lives, our histories, our knowledge, and our place in the universe. The forest does not just surround us, it grows within us, its branching logic shaping the very pathways of our language and our reason. Perhaps the most powerful and transformative of these metaphors is the scientific concept of the tree of life. For centuries, humans tried to organize the living world into a simple, linear ladder, a great chain of being with microbes at the bottom and humans at the top. But Charles Darwin, in his quest to understand the origins of species, offered a revolutionary and far more beautiful image, that of a great, ancient, and endlessly branching tree. In this powerful metaphor, the deep, common trunk represents the earliest universal ancestor of all living things. From this trunk, the first great boughs diverge, representing the major kingdoms of life. These boughs then split into the smaller branches of phyla and classes, which in turn divide and subdivide into the ever finer twigs and leaves of families, genera, and finally, individual species. This single image completely changed our understanding of ourselves. It showed us that life does not progress in a straight line towards a single goal, but radiates outwards in all directions, exploring every possible way of being. It taught us that we are not the pinnacle of creation, but simply one small, recent leaf on one particular twig of an immense and glorious tree. It is a metaphor of profound connection and humility, reminding us that we share a common root with the towering redwood, the humble mushroom, and the microscopic bacterium. We are all family, all part of the same grand, growing structure. This same intuitive pattern shapes how we understand our own, more immediate families. It is no accident that we speak of our genealogy as a family tree. We trace our personal history back through time by mapping the branching connections of our lineage. We speak of our roots when we refer to our ancestry, the deep, unseen foundation from which we have grown. We talk of the different branches of a family, spreading out through marriage and migration. The language we use is saturated with the logic of the tree. This is because the tree's form is a perfect visual representation of how life is passed down, how a single lineage can diversify and spread, and how every individual is connected back to a common source. It is a pattern that feels deeply, intuitively true, a natural and organic way to visualize the river of life as it flows through the generations. We carry this branching logic into the most abstract realms of our thought. When we are faced with a complex problem, we often create a decision tree, starting with a primary choice that branches into different possibilities, each of which branches into further consequences. In the world of computer science, data is often organized into tree structures for efficient searching and sorting. When we want to brainstorm a new idea, we might create a mind map with the central concept at the core and related thoughts branching out like limbs and twigs. This hierarchical branching pattern is a fundamental way that we organize information, breaking down a complex whole into its manageable parts while never losing sight of the connections between them. And in our highest philosophical pursuits, we speak of the tree of knowledge, an ancient and enduring metaphor for the structure of all that we know. The deep roots represent the first principles, the foundational axioms of logic and reason. The great trunk might be a major domain, like science or art. The boughs are the distinct disciplines, physics, history, music, and the leaves are the individual facts, theories, and masterpieces. The tree is not just a plant that grows in the soil. It is a pattern that grows in the mind, a fundamental archetype that helps us to see and create order in a complex world. Its silent, branching form, a blueprint for our own understanding. That silent, branching form, which has become so deeply imprinted on our way of thinking, is so powerful that its presence endures long after the living tree has fallen and returned to the earth. Its legacy is not just metaphorical, but physical, geological, and deeply woven into the story of our planet. To understand this, let us take a journey back in time, far beyond the memory of any living thing, to a world that was both alien and yet profoundly familiar. Let us travel back 300 million years to the Carboniferous period, a time when the Earth was a vast, primeval greenhouse. The great forests of this era were not like the ones we know today. There were no flowers, no pines, no oaks. Instead, the land was dominated by immense, swampy jungles of bizarre and wonderful plants. Giant club mosses called lepidodendron, which grew over 100 feet tall with scaly, diamond-patterned bark, towering, bamboo-like horsetails called calamites, and enormous tree ferns that created a lush, dense canopy. The air was thick, warm, and humid, rich with levels of oxygen and carbon dioxide far higher than they are today. For 50 million years, these vast forests grew and died in a relentless cycle. As these strange, giant plants fell, they landed in the stagnant, oxygen-poor waters of the swamps. In this environment, the normal processes of decay were stifled. The bacteria and fungi that would usually break down dead wood could not survive, and so the fallen forests did not rot away. Instead, they simply piled up, layer upon layer, decade after decade, millennium after millennium, forming immense, dense mats of partially decomposed plant matter called peat. Over the vast expanse of geological time, as the continents drifted and the seas rose and fell, these enormous peat beds were buried under thousands of feet of sand, mud, and rock. Deep within the Earth's crust, trapped under the immense weight of the sediment above, they were subjected to incredible heat and pressure. And over millions of years, a slow and profound transformation took place. The water was squeezed out, and the complex organic molecules of the ancient plants were rearranged, their carbon becoming more and more concentrated. The soft, spongy peat was slowly compressed and cooked into the soft, brown coal called lignite, then into harder, bituminous coal, and in some cases, into the hardest, purest, and most energy-rich form of all, black, lustrous anthracite. The electricity that lights our homes, the energy that has powered much of our modern world, is, in a very real sense, the ghost of this ancient, long-vanished forest. Every lump of coal is a piece of compressed, fossilized swamp, a time capsule of prehistoric plant life. When we burn it, we are releasing sunlight that was captured by the leaves of a giant fern 300 million years ago, a silent, powerful echo of a world we can now only imagine. But these ancient forests left behind a more intimate and delicate legacy as well. The trees of this era, like many trees today, would often bleed a thick, sticky resin when their bark was injured, a fragrant, golden substance that would seal the wound and protect the tree from insects and disease. Occasionally, this resin would drip from the trees and fall to the swampy forest floor, and in its slow, viscous descent, it would sometimes trap a tiny, unsuspecting inhabitant of this prehistoric world. Buried under layers of sediment along with the rest of the forest, this resin began its own slow transformation. The volatile oils within it gradually evaporated, and its molecules began to link together, to polymerize, until it hardened into the beautiful, translucent fossil we call amber. Amber is a window into a lost world, a perfect and luminous time capsule. Within these golden, petrified droplets of tree resin, we find the most exquisitely preserved fossils ever discovered. We can gaze upon a fly from the time of the dinosaurs, with every microscopic hair on its legs and every delicate vein in its wings perfectly intact. We can find spiders frozen in the act of spinning their webs, ants locked in combat, pollen grains from flowers that no human has ever seen, and even the iridescent feathers of small dinosaurs. Each piece of amber is a tiny, precious diorama, a single, frozen moment of life, a luminous tomb that holds the ghost of an ancient forest in a state of perfect, unending stillness. The forest's presence, we find, is so powerful that its memory persists not just in our minds, but in the very rock and stone of the earth, a whisper from a deep and ancient past. That whisper from the deep and ancient past, carried to us in the stored sunlight of coal and the golden tears of amber, is a powerful reminder of the forest's enduring presence on this planet. It is a story of profound change, of adaptation, of persistence through ages we can barely comprehend. And now, as we stand in the forests of our own time, we find ourselves at a new and crucial chapter in this long story, a chapter where our own human story has become inextricably woven with the future of the forest. Our role is no longer that of a passive observer, but of an active participant, and our deepening scientific understanding is guiding us, not towards domination, but back towards a relationship of symbiosis and of hope. For centuries, we have been burning the fossilized ghosts of the Carboniferous forests, releasing their 300-million-year-old carbon back into the atmosphere. And today, the living forests of our world are quietly, patiently working to restore the balance. Through the simple, sunlit miracle of photosynthesis, the trees are breathing in the excess carbon dioxide from our atmosphere. They are the great lungs of our planet, performing a vital act of planetary respiration. Every year, the world's forests absorb billions of tons of carbon, locking it away in the beautiful, durable architecture of their wood, their branches, their roots, and in the rich, dark soil that they create and sustain. They are our greatest natural allies in the quest for a stable climate, great living balancers, working in silent, steadfast partnership with the oceans to heal the delicate chemistry of our air. And our new chapter in this partnership involves a conscious and gentle helping hand. As our planet warms, the ideal climate zones for many tree species are beginning to shift, moving slowly towards the cooler poles or up the slopes of mountains. But a tree is a stationary being. It can only migrate as fast as its seeds can travel, a process that is often far too slow to keep pace with the rapid changes we are now witnessing. And so, a new and hopeful science is emerging, the practice of assisted migration. It involves carefully and thoughtfully collecting the seeds from trees in one area and planting them in new regions that will become their ideal home in the coming decades. It is a profound act of foresight and care, a way of helping our silent companions on their journey into an uncertain future. Our role is also one of a careful and attentive librarian, a guardian of the forest's immense genetic diversity. A forest is not a monoculture of identical trees. Within any single species, there is a vast and hidden library of genetic possibilities. Some individual trees may carry the genes for a greater resistance to drought. Others may have a natural defense against a particular insect or fungus. This diversity is the forest's toolkit for adaptation, its inherent resilience in the face of change. By protecting our last remaining old-growth forests, which are the richest reservoirs of this genetic heritage, and by ensuring that our reforestation efforts focus on planting a wide and diverse variety of native species, we are helping to ensure that the forest has the resources it needs to meet the challenges of the future, whatever they may be. We are not just planting trees, we are nurturing the very source of the forest's strength and its ancient ability to endure. And perhaps most hopefully of all, we are beginning to remember a wisdom that our ancestors knew well, that the human world and the world of the forest do not have to be separate. We are learning to weave them back together, to create human habitats that mimic the wisdom and the resilience of a forest ecosystem. Practices like agroforestry are showing us that we can grow our food in the dappled sunlight under a canopy of useful trees, creating systems that are more productive, more diverse, and more stable than our open fields. The design philosophy of permaculture teaches us to create gardens, farms, and even whole communities based on the patterns of a natural woodland, with its layers of life, its closed loops of nutrients, and its inherent sustainability. This is a vision of a future where we move beyond simply conserving the forest as something separate from us, and learn once again to live within it, as a part of it, in a truly symbiotic relationship, where our own well-being and the well-being of the forest are understood to be one and the same. As our journey together comes to a gentle close, let us return to where we began, to the simple, the immediate, and the most intimate connection of all. Let us return to the quiet, steady, and miraculous rhythm of your own breath. Feel the air as it enters, filling your lungs, and feel it as it leaves, a soft and gentle release. And as you rest in this simple, peaceful rhythm, consider this one final, wondrous thought. Nearly every breath you have ever taken in your entire life is a gift from the green and growing things of this world. The oxygen that is, at this very moment, sustaining every cell in your body was breathed out by a tree, or by the vast invisible forests of algae and plankton adrift in the sunlit surface of the oceans. The entire atmosphere of our world is a living creation, a vast, shared exhalation that has been built and maintained, day by day, for billions of years. Our planet is breathing, and we are breathing with it. There is a perfect and beautiful reciprocity in this exchange, a sacred and unbroken circle of giving and receiving. With every out-breath, you release the carbon dioxide that the trees need for their life. It is the raw material from which they will build their leaves, their wood, their very being. And with every in-breath, you receive the oxygen that is the gentle byproduct of their own sunlit alchemy. Your out-breath is their in-breath. Their out-breath is your in-breath. This is the most fundamental partnership on Earth. A quiet, constant conversation that connects every respiring animal to every photosynthesizing plant. It is a single, planetary metabolism, a silent and elegant dance of reciprocity that has sustained the great, complex web of life for hundreds of millions of years. It is the deepest reminder that we are not separate from this world. We are a vital and necessary part of its breathing. And even now, as you lie here, resting in this quiet space, the gentle, steady presence of the forest is likely with you. It is in the wood of the floor beneath you, in the sturdy frame of your bed, in the smooth, worn surface of a favorite chair. It is in the soft, woven fibers of the paper in the book on your nightstand. Even after a tree has fallen, its life's work of turning sunlight and air into substance stays with us, its strength and warmth becoming a silent, constant, and comforting companion in our lives. The enduring presence of wood is a final, quiet gift, a reminder of the forest's profound and unending generosity. And so, our story of the Whispering Forest comes to its end. We have travelled from the patient promise of a single seed to the cosmic fire in which its atoms were forged. We have listened to the ascent of water and read the history in the rings. We have walked the hidden pathways of the wood wide web and felt the forest's power to call down the rain. We have learned of its chemical conversations, its mathematical grace, and its ability to rise from the ashes. We have stood in the humbling presence of the ancient ones and felt the forest's power to heal our own minds. All of these stories are one story, the story of a deep and interconnected life that flows through all things. And you are a part of this story too. Your breath is a part of its breath. Your life is a part of its life. Thank you for walking this gentle path with me tonight. May the quiet peace of the ancient forest settle in your mind and in your heart. May you feel your roots sinking into a deep and restful place, and may your dreams be as peaceful as a silent, moonlit canopy. Rest well, dear friend. Sleep well,